Welcome back, my constant scryers. Make sure your silver mirrors are polished, your crystal balls free of blemishes, or your fonts topped up with holy water. During our last sending, we explored a little of the city of Baldur's Gate. We discovered the Missing Hand Adventurers Guild and met some of its colorful proprietors. We covered the grounds outside the city and led our story south down the Coast Trade Way, only to discover that the road near the Cloakwood Forest is growing more treacherous every day. But if your adventurers survived their journey past the Cloakwood, perhaps you're not trying hard enough. Nor perhaps it's time we investigate Ireweald. Ireweald is just to the south of the Cloakwood down a small road on the eastern side of the Coast Trade Way. First and foremost, Ireweald is a farming town. The long-term residents of Ireweald are sheep herders, grain farmers, and cheesemakers. Hungry adventurers could take a break from the road rations with steaming bowls of rich mutton stew, plates heaped with breads, sharp-aged and soft, creamy sheep's cheeses, and roasted lamb or mutton. Isn't that delectable, scryers? However, these days, food is becoming in short supply. The normally bright and welcoming attitude of Ireweald citizens has given way to dour expressions and hostile demeanors. The folk of Ireweald are certain that the blight has been brought upon them by the frequent outsiders that come to take refuge from the road in their little town. Yet, there are still several places where outsiders are welcomed. The Soul Inn is large enough for such a small town, owing to the frequent traffic from the Coastway. The Winking Buck Inn is 3 stories tall with a grand pub and mealhouse on the main floor. The upper floors are a sprawling mass of rooms. The accommodations are modest. You won't see the opulence of some of Baldur's Gate's finer inns here. But the rooms are clean and well maintained. Single accommodations are on the 2nd floor, and more expansive rooms are up on the 3rd. For those too low on coin, there is a bunkhouse out back where one can secure a bed, but it may still be warm from its previous occupant. If a traveler must stay in the bunkhouse, they'd be well advised to keep a close eye on their valuables. After all, how trusting is a random group of vagrants that are assuredly low on coin? The Winking Buck is owned by a gruff old retired farmer known as Balin. He is most often seen behind the bar, and he's quick enough to pull a pint or rent a room. But most of the service in the Buck is overseen by his daughter, Rhea. She's a stout woman, who would look as natural baling hay as she does slinging stew. But she has kind eyes and a pleasant countenance, if not always appearing a bit worried these days. They employ several maids and barmaidens seen constantly scurrying about the Buck. But travelers will often encounter Timon the most. Timon is one of the local boys. He's excitable and enthusiastic about his work, but I'm afraid he's a bit dim-witted. Timon was raised by his grandfather after some unknown malady took his parents' lives some years ago. Neither Timon nor anyone else in town will discuss the fate of his parents. But everyone is thankful enough that Balin and Rhea have given the boy employment. It's known in town that the Buck pays Timon enough to take care of himself and his grandfather. But Balin can frequently be heard shouting, Where is that useless half-wit? Rhea treats Timon perhaps with a little more gentle affection. But despite Balin's exclamations, it's known that the boy is well looked after. Timon can be seen constantly sweeping the front entryway and inside. He helps bus mugs and dishes and can occasionally be seen serving food if the floor is short-handed. But that is only under dire circumstances, as he can't seem to keep even simple orders straight. With accommodations seen to, curious adventurers may want to investigate the other most frequented business in town, the Only Spade. The Only Spade is first and foremost a farm supply store. As a matter of fact, it's the only farm supply store. Farming tools, animal feeds, and grain seeds are all on prominent display. But the Only Spade's success can be owed to its provisions and supplies for travelers. The Spade is owned and operated by a pair of halfling brothers by the name of Danner and Walder Bigbow. Danner is boisterous and possessed of a personality that would seem more at home in a body twice or thrice his size, while Walder is keen and quiet, preferring to handle most coin passing through the Spade. The brothers can sometimes be seen to quietly bicker as their styles for running the Spade can sometimes differ. But such arguments are usually quickly dealt with and tucked away. Travelers can get the usual assortment of hard breads and porridge grains for travel here, but of most note is a large sign that says, "One for the road." It's hung above a set of empty shelves that is currently barren. This is where the famous Irewealdian Sharp is normally sold. The aged cheese that's dry enough to travel well in someone's pack, but its flavor is said to make even weeks of subsiding on the hardest tack bread tolerable, if it's accompanied by the fine cheese. One of my bats has secreted itself away in the rafters of the Spade. Let's listen to Danner exclaim his story of plight and blight.
Oh yes, them shelves are as empty as the heart of a white. We used to stock the finest cheese for miles right in front of where your nose is now. But we had to take it all away. As quick as we could bring it in from the makers, it'd rot on the shelf before your very eyes. Uncut, that cheese could last a year and more, only getting more delicious as the days wore on. But we cannot even keep it on the shelf for a day before the stench starts hitting your nostrils. It'll drive you right out of the place if we left it there. It's a terrible blight, and something needs to be done about it. The whole town relies on the income the sheep and cheese provide. People won't stop in a farming town without much something to draw them off the road. And I tell you what, it's getting so bad, Mayor Rafben don't even leave his mighty mansion no more. Every night he'd take a stroll down the main way at sunset. He used to chat up the shoppies and ask them, how's your business today, and how's your family, and all of that. Well, you'd even be known to take off a pint or two at the buck on occasion, just to take the time to chat with the farmers about the weather or some such. And now, since the blight, no hide nor hair of him. It's like he fears the townies will take him apart on sight or some such. It's cowardly, I say. He's visited with the folk through good times and bad. And now, when times go from worse to downright awful, he locks himself away. It's only his clerk that answers the door, just to tell you, no appointments available. Like he's telling you to go piss off, but politely.
Danner and Walder know everyone in town, as well as Balin and Rhea. They can direct your adventures to cheesemakers that are willing to show their workhouses, or perhaps farmers that will show their herds. The cheese workshops are immaculate and well maintained. At any given time, there are as many people cleaning those workshops as there are making the cheese themselves. The cheesemakers are stymied at the blight and can offer no explanation. If your adventurers make their way into the storerooms and aging cellars, they'd better have a strong constitution, or they'll find themselves retching from the stench. But nothing will appear out of the ordinary, dear scryers. We'll have to dig deeper to find clues. If your would-be saviors head off to the sheep farms, they'll not find better conditions. So many sheep have been dying that some are being left in the field to rot. The farmers warn that this is attracting carrion feeders, and beastly ones at that. If your group ventures out to the fields, they may encounter giant vultures, swarms of insects, wolves, perhaps even dire wolves. All of them crazed by the smell of death and ready to attack. The farmers won't have seen anything like it, and will claim that late at night, it will seem as if the land itself wants you gone from it. So be sure to grab your manuals and look up these fierce creatures. Perhaps your adventurers will encounter some of them. Investigating could be a difficult and frustrating venture for your heroes. Are they looking for cultists? Searching for mages casting curses? No footprints can be found by the greatest of trackers, nor will any arcane sigils be found in the cheese houses or fields. What could be causing this malady? Does your group have anyone proficient in arcane talents? I suspect if detect magic is cast in the fields or workhouses, no magic will be found targeting the sheep or the cheese. Instead, the drinking water of the sheep and the washing water of the cheese will start to emit a sickly green glow. Those talented enough to detect it will sense a dire nature magic has been cast on the water. The nature of the spell is akin to a curse, and would feel out of place, coming from a druid. How can this cursed water be everywhere at once, scryers? Further investigation will reveal that much of the water supply of the town is supplied by an open cistern, due to the ground being hard to dig to well depth. The top layers of soil are rich and well suited enough to farming sheep. But deep below, hard clays and stone deposits make it difficult to access the groundwater. Should your adventurers make their way to the cistern, long, narrow, muddy footprints can be found. And though the water in the cistern looks clean and doesn't appear to be poisoned, arcane searching will reveal that it has specific and dire curses applied to it. Strong magic has been used to apply the curse, and it seems as though that this curse is being frequently reapplied. So a simple dispel magic will either be too difficult to pull off, or it'll prove ineffective as the source of the curses continues to be reapplied. The most skilled trackers, perhaps with great luck, may be able to trace the long, narrow footprints back into town. But it will be difficult as you enter the town, as it is well traveled, and the many feet and carts of the road will wear away evidence quickly. Your group must be eager to find the source of this blight. So let's see if we can determine the cause, shall we? Questioning townfolk will not only expose their despair of the blight, but also their disdain that the formerly well-liked Mayor Rafben has not been seen. Your group may encounter the eager druid of the cloaked circle, Kiernan. They may encounter her first in one of her animal forms, an intelligent field mouse or a canny red fox. She uses these forms mostly to avoid detection and move swiftly. However, she is sure to take interest in your group. She will offer aid to any that declare that they are investigating the blight. If your group has trouble finding the cursed sister, Kiernan can reveal it to you. In her fox form, her senses are keen, and her tracking ability is unmatched. she'll be able to track the footprints leading from the cistern outside of the town all the way to the mayor's mansion. The mayor's mansion is the largest building in town, save perhaps the Winking Buck. It's finely constructed, but stops short of being audacious or garish. The mansion serves as both the home and office of Mayor Rafben. Mayor Rafben is a tall half-elf. He has silver hair and a thin white mustache. Not that your adventurers will see him from outside the mansion, scryers. For that, they will have to get past his seneschal and guard. The doors of the mansion are normally open during daylight hours to allow for townsfolk to inquire about meetings and the like. But now, they remain fully closed and locked. Should your group knock to gain entrance, they'll be greeted by Rathbin's seneschal, Garamond, through a small port on the main door. Garamond is a squat, balding dwarf. What hair he does possess erupts from the side of his head at straight angles. Visitors will be told by Garamond that there are no appointments till next month. If voices are raised or any threat is used, the seneschal will threaten to call the mayor's guard, who is a skilled swordsman of some renown. But I'm sure your curious crew will gain entrance to the mansion somehow, perhaps through coercion, stealth, or threat of violence. Should Seneschal Garamond be threatened, he will summon Battlemaster Markavon. Markavon is a human with silver hair pulled back into a short ponytail. He wields a greatsword and wears ornate half-plate armor. Unfortunately, should it look like a fight will occur, Mayor Rafben will interject directly. He will grant an audience to your crew to forestall any combat. He is quite persuasive and charismatic, so it's likely your group will accept the audience. The entrance of the interior of the mansion gives way to a grand hall richly decorated in oaken furniture and elaborate tapestry. The far end of the room has a staircase that leads to an interior balcony overlooking the grand hall. Mayor Rafben will likely invite your group to his office located on the second floor. Should your adventurers interrogate the mayor about the blight infecting the town, he will prove to be quite unhelpful. At times, he will seem ignorant, citing the sheer number of people who are seeking an audience with him. He'll exclaim that he's been very busy dealing with the farmers, cheesemakers, and everyone else in town, even though no one seems to have seen him lately. He'll be curious about the state of the contract, and remind your gold-hungry crew that the contract will not be paid unless a clear culprit, cause, or cure for the blight can be found. If your adventurers have found the mansion early, or have not gathered much information, they will be sent away with assurances that they'll be granted another audience when they return. If your group has managed to discover the source of the blight as the water supply, or has gathered enough information from the town, then Rafben will curiously become more and more agitated as your crew divulges their information. This will culminate with your group being escorted out of the office and back into the Great Hall, where the Seneschal and the Battlemaster will be waiting. Surely those among you who harbor very dexterous or mobile would-be heroes will recognize this as a wonderful place for a fight. 2 levels of wide open spaces with clear sightlines down below and up high. It would be a shame to waste such a space, would it not? So let's indulge, shall we? Time to let you in on a little secret, dear scryers. The mayor, the seneschal, and the battlemaster are not at all what they appear. Should they be discovered or be pushed into conflict, they will reveal that the 3 of them are actually a coven of green hags. I hope you have some of the works of Volo handy or some other manual by your side, dear scryers. You won't want to miss a detail of these delightfully vile creatures. A hag alone is deceitful and evasive. It uses spells to confound her prey, so she can attack with her vicious claws. I can just imagine that those dirty, bog-stained appendages are fearsome enough. But a green hag sharing a coven can use her spells to inflict lethal damage as well. Beware, scryers. Green hags in a coven are a fearsome foe. If you suspect that your poor wards are too weak to deal with the creatures, you may wish to render them weaker with your reality-forming magics. They've been expending quite a bit of their energies lately, so we'll forgive them if you find them not quite at full strength. But if your crew is up to, or more than equal to the task, then don't let anything spoil a good fight. These creatures have been replenishing themselves with the souls of their victims, growing stronger with each death they've inflicted upon the sheep herds and people of the town. Should your crew be unfortunately victorious, then another great plot will have been spoiled, and the surrounding area will be boringly safer in the interim. But there are questions left dangling, aren't there, scryers? You know, I have yet to witness a group of heroes who won't celebrate their every victory with a spot of pillaging and the ritual rolling of corpses for loose change. They might find themselves frustrated as the hags themselves have little need for magic weapons or material wealth. But they will find themselves in an unoccupied, opulent mansion. I wonder what they'll get up to now that this threat is sealed away. Or perhaps your crew is a virtuous lot, and they'll simply search the premises for clues to the threat or the true fate of the mayor and his people. Should your crew prove to be too hasty to leave without ransacking or seeking knowledge, they might hear a baleful moaning coming from the basement. Down in the basement, the real mayor, seneschal, and battlemaster have been kept for days. They will be in quite a state, being imprisoned by the hags. Their fates are up to you, dear scryers. Has your crew performed admirably and quickly, or have they wasted their time and dragged their feet this whole way? I would show some mercy, scryers. It's more interesting if Rafben is left alive to finish our story and pay our hero. Let's see if I have a spare bat or two in seclusion that might hear what he has to say.
Those disgusting, despicable creatures. I'm grateful that you have answered the missive I sent and ended their wretched existence. I thought I would die down here while the town suffered above. I sent my plea for help to the Flaming Fist some time ago, when this atrocity began. I used to take regular strolls through the town to keep up my constitution and stay in contact with the townsfolk. Without those walks, this place can feel like a prison of bureaucracy and paperwork if you're not careful. I should think from now on, it will feel more like a prison than ever, having actually served in that capacity. Several nights ago, I had strayed longer and farther than I normally do on my evening walk. I was worried about the ongoing blight, and I didn't think a round at the buck would satisfy my fears. I found myself wandering towards the cistern, and that's where they found me. They subdued me and dragged the location of my domicile from me. They subdued my guardsmen and my seneschal. We've been trapped down here ever since. They fed us and watered us meagerly to keep us alive, so they could feed off our life force for their nightly rituals. I don't think that they could stop themselves from taunting and admonishing us. They said that they were forced from the Cloakwood by the punishments that have been visited upon the city dwellers. They blame us for the blinding, and say that the imbalance caused by it is all of our fault. Their plan was to make this town uninhabitable and force the city folk away so that their forest could heal. I have no idea if there's even a shred of truth to their claims, but I will be glad if they haven't been successful. We have much rebuilding of our herds and our cheese industry to do here. I'm grateful to you that we may have the chance to do so.
So, dear scryers, we've naught else to do but send your adventurers back to Baldur's Gate to split their reward with the Missing Hand Guild, and perhaps take some rest within the walls of Baldur's Gate. I'm going to miss those diabolical bog-soaked hags. Perhaps there's some reality where their plans went unhampered, and we got to see the fruition of their efforts. But I tend to daydream when I am tired, scryers, and tired I am after all of that. I should see to my basilisk anyway, scryers. He petrified his keeper the other day, and I don't know if anyone has cleaned out his pen. I certainly won't do it, but I should probably find someone to assign the task to. Well, till next we tell tales in the dark. Goodbye, dear scryers.